Nigeria's Debt Management Office has revealed that total public debt for 2022 rose by approximately 17%. The figure for fiscal year 2022 was 46.25 trillion naira. That's for the nation. Let's go to the states. For the states, there was an increase of approximately 20%. Figure was 5.3 trillion naira. Now, Delta State saw the highest increase among the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Third row there, underneath Borno and Cross River State. Delta State going from 154 billion naira in 2021 to 304 billion in 2022. We're going to talk about that plus a lot more from Delta State. We're being joined now by Dr. Kingsley Emu, who is the Chief Economic Advisor to the Governor of Delta State. Doctor, you're very welcome. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So I wanted to begin. The question being asked is, what accounted for this really large increase in debt in Delta State, and what are the funds used for?
Good morning, good afternoon rather. We're going concern, don't forget that we have just gone past the first tenor and we're in the second tenor. And then we have a lot of activities lined up which have been ongoing. We have major projects that we have embarked on over the period. We have Oge, the biggest floating market in Africa. We have the world-class 7-star secretariat that we're running. We have done close to 2,000 kilometers of roads and 1,400 kilometers of drains. We are doing a lot on human capital development. And then we're also doing investments in UTM and other related businesses. We're expanding the shores of the economic frontiers of Delta State. Yes, they may look high, but if you look at the comparative period between 2015 and 2015 December and 2022 December, we have only grown our loan portfolio by just 1%, only 1%. So what it is that over the period, because of our fiscal discipline, we rely strictly on our fiscal strategy paper, which is the budget planning process. And we impute only those things that the budget that are realistic and the budget can take in those periods. So we come by way of environment and by way of supplementary budgets, depending on our cash flow to realign. Our revenue streams have increased over the period too, don't forget. We have a lot of recoveries of oil wells. We have been one of the foremost oil producers in the last 3 years or 2 years, so to speak. And then that also means that there's a huge stream of income coming in. So governance is a social contract. We cannot allow our people to suffer when we have the potentials to alleviate those challenges. So what you have seen in that growth, which is nothing, is the fact that our revenue stream has also grown, and then we are addressing them significantly. More importantly is the nature of the facility, of the loan. Some loans can be a long-term loan. Some loans can be loans that are based on known receivables, not even future cash flow. You are discounting promissory notes. For instance, we are owed over 200 and something billion, and if we discounted only 100 billion to do those projects, to service some of the debts that we have incurred over the period, I don't think that is wrong. That's a foolish economics. Because if we wanted to have all those monies in our hands before we do those projects, it will be cost-push inflation, and the logistics or imported inflation will wipe us out. We even have the luxury of even doing most of those projects. We have done over 6 bridges. We have ordered about 5 bridges in the works. We have the Asaba Bridge that we have just concluded over here, and the interchange, which has eased traffic. And that's also part of ease of doing business. So we have interlinked all our communities. We have developed all the rural areas. We're building bridges. Beneku, for instance. Beneku is in Ndokwa East, and it's an oil producing area. For so long, they have been assessing their area through a pontoon. We're doing a massive bridge that can take away that entire challenge and open up that space for business.
All right.
So you will expect that as a responsible government, we should spend wisely and according to our cash flow.
All right.
That's why you saw that there's those period. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for breaking that down. So you mentioned revenues, the oil wells, and so on. It does look like Delta is disproportionately dependent on FAC allocations. And if you look at the revenue structure, it looks like, as far as your internally generated revenue is concerned, so about 24% comes from internally generated revenue, the remaining 75% from FAC. So, as far as being an oil producing state, making those revenues, why the high dependence on FAC?
Expectedly so, because we don't have fiscal federalism. If we're just paying royalties to the federal government, if we were observing fiscal federalism, we'll have more than enough. You can't even compare us with people who are less dependent on oil and yet get some spin-off or fallouts from that process. 24% is significant, but we're not saying that that's all we can do. Don't also forget that most of the oil majors who should ordinarily be located in Delta states are all running out of Delta state to other areas, and nobody's addressing anything. I recall very vividly when the federal government gave a directive at some point that they should go back to their location, but nothing has been enforced. So what you rely on is miserable payee from those areas, and yet we suffer the brunt of degradation and all of those. So for internally generated revenue, we're about 6 billion on a monthly basis. Don't also forget that our economy is also a young economy. I say a young economy because we have diversified this economy significantly. For instance, if you check our GDP, nominal GDP, you'll find out that the non-oil service area accounts for over 52.4% of our GDP, which means that even though we're a major oil producer, we've diversified from those areas into services, agriculture, and manufacturing. And we have had consistent growth in that direction. So that means that we are actually targeting these areas for growth and expansion because they actually account for most of job creation for our people. And what does that tell you? We can't even tax those people. We can't tax them at the level where they are now because otherwise we'll tax them out of existence, and that will be counterproductive to the numerous funds that we have expended in the area of human capital development, especially as it concerns the youth agricultural development and skill acquisition programs that we have been running. Recall that in 2017, the National Competitiveness Council of Nigeria actually said that Delta State was first in human capital development policies. And that was a very credible organization. So you don't expect, back to your question, you don't expect that a foremost oil producing state should have a 50-50 revenue ratio in terms of earning. Having said that, we're also very concerned, but we believe that over the period, given the kinds of things that we have done now, we should be able to increase that reasonably, but not destructively, because that will harm what we have set out to do by way of policies.
All right. The Bureau of Statistics just released capital importation for the fourth quarter of 2022. Only 9 states attracted capital in 2022. We're looking at a table from the Bureau here, and Delta State is highlighted at the bottom. You can see that Bauchi didn't bring anything in, nothing into Bayelsa, Benue, Borno, Cross River, and Delta. So, I mean, are there any challenges in preventing capital, foreign capital, from coming into Delta State?
Well, capital is also very sensitive, and the owners of capital after 2020 have also been very careful in where they send capital to. The security issues in this country is also not very favorable. So what you see is that except you have very specific projects that attract those size of capital, that's when you see them come in those areas. But having said that, recall that in 2019 we made a trip to China, where we said we were going to establish a Kuala Industrial Park and had a lot of investors lined up. Even the federal government was interested in using our oil platform, where we were going to build a gas-based industrial park in Kuala. But after COVID, everybody went into hibernation. But we have resurrected that. So it means that but for the COVID, we would have had a couple of industries that would have come in by now, and then all of those would have been a thing of the past. And you also know that the period of gestation to build this type of businesses takes a fairly longer time, especially in a curious economy like Nigeria, where policies and security challenges are major concerns, not only to for foreign capital, but even also to indigenous of Delta State. But I can tell you, as we speak now, we have an anchor tenant in the industrial park. Once we're able to develop that process and have a gas-based park that is very competitive in gas pricing, you'll be rest assured that a lot of people would express interest in that, and that begins to open that vista of opportunity. That we don't have it now does not mean that there's so much work in progress. But let me also add that whilst some of these foreign capital FDIs exist, they may not be documented. And I mentioned that earlier. For instance, the company that is co-located in that area is bringing in close to, it's about $100 million transaction, for which we have also paid our own equity as a state. And they're bringing them in form of equipment. So that also accounts for development in this area, industrial development in this area.
Okay. Also, you mentioned the business climate earlier in one of your earlier answers. More data, this time from the PEBEC, the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council's 2023 Sub-National Business Made Easy ranking. Delta, unfortunately, ranked 35th out of 36. Again, this is a survey. I mean, it's a survey where they ask, the private sector folks around the country about business climate. So, I mean, what do you make of this ranking? What needs to be done to improve it?
First is, for us, is a thing of concern, and secondly, is curious. And I'm also sure that this was a response of Dr. Jumoke when you had a session with her yesterday. Because the sample size, it's your respondents, the outcome from your respondents could be curious. If you meet an aggrieved respondent, you get an aggrieved result. If you meet those who have benefited, you do that. But don't forget that ease of doing business, it has a positive relationship or correlation with also size of the GDP. If we have grown our GDP from 2.9 trillion in 2015 to over 6 trillion, it means that we've almost doubled the size of our GDP. And it just can't just be oil, because oil has only accounted for about 47.4%. So technically, that's why I said it's curious. It's curious because we can't be doing business, we can't be having that level of growth, and yet challenges with ease of doing business. It is true that competition will be on the increase in such fertile areas like Delta State, where, well, to a reasonable extent, security concerns are mitigated because of the enormous resources being put out there by the state government. But it's something that we need to, like I said, of concern, something that we need to investigate further. We have actually had a session with the entire teams, and we're looking at how we can begin to pay more attention to the processes of the survey rather than the outcome, because the processes will lead to something positive, will impact the outcome, and that's where we're headed.
All right. I need to ask you very importantly about jobs and the youth. Delta State unemployment figures, according to the Bureau of Statistics, I think it's about 31%. Yeah, so unemployment 31, actually 2020, so 31.4% unemployment, underemployment 24.01. So you're looking at, what's that, 55.15% combined. And I know that the jobs issue across Nigeria is an issue, so it's not just Delta State, and it's higher in other states as well. But what do you think Delta needs to do to create more jobs, especially for the youth population?
We can tell you very clearly, when we set out in 2015, the first thing we did was to target the youth population. And we're very concerned about the size, the statistics then. And the first thing His Excellency did was to hire a Chief Job Creation Officer, Professor Eric Emu. And we went also ahead to establish Board of Technical Education Boards, which from policy to law. And today we have 6 technical colleges revamped. We have 9 technical colleges in the works. We have 3 tertiary institutions out there, also with a lot of technology bias. We have 14 vocational skill centers who are also focusing on skills training, because we believe that we must produce skills in line with the demands of the labor market. And that is what we have done. I tell you something. Today, we have done over 15,000, converted 15,000 greens to entrepreneurs who are also sponsored largely by the state. And a lot of other interested bodies like the World Bank, seeing the extent of what we have done and impressed, also participated in the funding about 2 years ago through our C4 project. And I can also tell you that over 232 direct jobs have been created, and over 1.3 billion of 3 million of indirect jobs. And these indirect jobs are as a result of the numerous infrastructural development that the state has established, which I have mentioned earlier, that over 2,000 kilometers of road and over 1,300, over 1,400 kilometers of trains. And we have also stepped up on a contributory health scheme under the health sector, just to complement, because a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And that is what we have done. We are focusing largely on that. And I can tell you one of the spin-offs from outcomes from the last campaign we did, because we did an intensive campaign around the 270 wards and the 25 local government area. One thing that stuck out was the environment, water resources, and human settlements. What concerned our team, my team, because I was in charge of research with my team members, were very concerned about the percentage of youth striking out to support the campaign. And our concern is post-election. How do we cater for these people? So that will call for a realignment of our job creation programs. That means that we may be moving from, maybe customizing our job creation programs on state-by-state basis to fit the uniqueness of those environments. And that is the only way we can tackle this unemployment. Otherwise, the state has rolled out an impressive job creation program that addresses the girl child specifically under Project Just, that has dealt with RISA under 3 per unit under youth development, and another job creation which is manned by Professor Ebo, the Chief Job Creation Officer. We've been doing the agricultural development and skill training for our youths. Today, we have a huge pool of all of those resources, and it costs money to also mentor them. We have a strong agency, independent of all the creating bodies, establishment bodies that monitors all the activities, and that has been a fantastic plus for us. An independent review of their performances said they've performed over 65%. That is good, but of greater concern is 35%. Should we continue to waste 35%? That is the next focus. And the incoming governor is very concerned. It's an integral part of his agenda to advance Delta. And human capital development, which encompasses health and employment, will be in the front burner.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned health and the contributory health scheme that you're engaging on, because at least the data from 2020 or 2021 is that health spend per capita in Delta is 2,971 naira, per person, while education is higher, but that's still 7,223. Is your health contributory scheme going to lead to that health per capita spend increasing? And then what's your thoughts on trying to improve how much is being spent on education as well?
The starting point for us is that we're guided by our budgets, the state budget, which guides our revenue streams, guides our policy implementation, budget implementation policies. And that is key. You would see that in the last, for instance, in the last one year, we have ramped up on education spend. We have 3 tertiary institutions coming on stream. Yes, most of them are converted, but a lot of expenditures have gone into that. His Excellency the Governor spoke extensively on that the last time. And it's both soft and physical, in terms of physical structures. We're the first state in the country that established Teachers Development Center. And that's also targeted at improving the soft skills for teachers. And we're recruiting. Of all the 8 months or 9 months of merry-go-round of the universities and the strike action, and people were practically in school. And it takes a lot of funding to do that. And back to health, we are focusing very strongly on contributory health scheme because that gives you an affordable, an accessible, and a near quality health services. To date, as I speak, we have over 1.2 million enrollees on that scheme. I have personally experienced the wonders in the contributory health scheme. So we need to deepen those areas. We have over 400 primary healthcare centers deployed for this purpose, and a lot of tertiary hospitals, tertiary institutions linked up to it. So I can tell you that we will continue. It's an evolution. It will continue to evolve according to our resources. We have built the infrastructure, superstructure, and then it's for us to continue to oil all of those. And I can tell you that it can only get better because we are our award-winning contributory health scheme. It's a model increasingly for Africa, I can tell you.
So on that note, you talked about GDP going from 2 trillion to about 6 now. What is the potential of Delta State's economy in your view? As far as, I guess, low-hanging fruits for economic success, and this 6 trillion naira figure we're seeing, could this become 10 trillion within 4 years? Well, what is the potential for the economy of Delta State?
First is that a whole lot of foundational things have been done. The fundamentals are in place. We're moving very largely into commercial agriculture, value chain developments, and we're already partnering with a few of them, noteworthy 3,400 hectares of oil palm with some refineries. Some individuals have also been supported to establish those refineries. We are converting some of our reserves that have almost become a challenge to oil palm for oil palm development. And I can tell you, only recently the state approved 25 billion for over 34,000 hectares of land for oil palm development. As a matter of fact, that's going to be one of the major legacies of this administration, where they need to disperse. And it's a PPP relationship with, it's being managed by First City Monument Bank. And that will improve the entire economy of everybody, because you have over 70% of the participants in this program, in this company called Delcom, are just small farm holders. So it means that all of them have been pulled into the group, have mentors, and then they have expanded processing mills manned by major commercial farmers in the entire group with a well-structured program. It's a well-structured program that if there's a default on that program by any of the small farm holders, it is taken up immediately by the supervising commercial farmers. So the potentials are huge. I know that the gestation is about 3 years, so if you talk about 10 years, yes, gestation period for oil palm is about 3 years, 4 years to grow, but at least we have started that journey. And the ones that already exist are also there. And the most important thing is that we have also created a huge pool of agripreneurs who are running, and stepreneurs who have critical skills and ready skills to be honed, just to be touched up a little bit, and they're ready to go for the industries that will collocate in Kuala Industrial Park and other allied areas that we also have an agro-industrial park that's about 95% finished. And what does that park do for us? It's a PPP. That park is designed to, it's a multi-product agro-processing plant. And we already have an anchor tenant, Mirai of Israel. And we have a huge rice mill that is almost complete. And other businesses are already co-locating on that 180 hectares of land in Bogwashi here. And that's very good for us, because it shows that those are the critical foundations that you must build and leverage to deliver on a larger economy. So even though oil is the highest earner, as it were, but the biggest job creation platform for us is the non-oil sector, agri, services, and all that. Services has grown significantly. If you look up you have seen that agri has grown about 13% year on year, and services has also grown significantly in that area. And so that's where we are. We believe that manufacturing will get a boost, construction will get a boost, especially when we have gas-powered park, which will be the next center for industrial revolution in Delta State. And I can assure you that we have started on a very strong note despite the challenges. It's even very soon, we're almost concluded having a free trade zone status in that environment. And that means that that's another major attraction for other businesses to co-locate in that area. In fact, that's even the first attraction for EML to co-locate in that area. Gas and the free trade zone status. So that's that.
All right. Dr. Kingsley Emu, Chief Economic Advisor to the Governor of Delta State. Thank you so much. Really, thank you very much for your time today to talk to us about the economy of Delta State. We really appreciate it.